Okay, so this is part 4 of our Illuminati lecture series, and we are ending the 90s with the publication of David Icke's The Biggest Secret. Icke is a former British soccer player and BBC commentator who is most famous for his conspiracy theory work. No one really remembers him as being a footballer or working for the BBC at any point, not anymore anyway. Icke's biggest contribution to the world is the claim that various political leaders are really shape-shifting lizard aliens from the constellation Draco. There's Draco, an image of it from International Astronomical something. It doesn't matter. Okay, but that's not the Draco we're talking about. That's why it doesn't matter. We're talking about the one that exists in the fourth dimension. But that time, the other fourth dimension, the one that doesn't exist in our reality, or any reality. All right. So Icke's conspiracy theory is that these shape-shifting lizards came to the Earth during the Babylonian Empire's rule, and they came here in search of our monoatomic gold, and I have no idea what that means. They also want to feed off our despair and sorrow, which I guess they can't get at home. I don't know. And these reptiles, they interbred with humans and produced a species known as the Anunnaki. Okay, here we go. The Anunnaki are real in that they are mentioned, that they're the gods in the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? So they're real as fictional constructs that existed prior to David Icke. But in this work, the Anunnaki, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Anunnaki are the gods which sent the great flood to cover the earth. Okay, so it's like Noah's flood, but the Epic of Gilgamesh predates the Bible as far as archaeology is concerned. So the Bible definitely took this idea from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which the Epic of Gilgamesh took it from an earlier idea. But the Anunnaki are responsible for it. Icke has them not as gods, but as the offspring of the reptiles and humans. So he agrees with the Epic of Gilgamesh that they existed, just that these are, not gods. They're the humans and reptile shapeshifters, the creatures. They're children. Biblically, now in the Bible, there is a race that is like this. They are the Nephilim, and they're the offspring of angels and humans, which Icke sometimes uses as a synonym because it's better for the conspiracy theory if you could tie it into like established texts. Icke combines the worst forms of right-wing Christian persecution, like extreme right-wing Christian persecution, with left-wing alternative medical beliefs, and he creates an eschatology that the Anunnaki control the Illuminati and are seeking a one-world government so they can continue to steal our gold, I guess. But also, he's adjusted his theory that none of this is real and that we are living in a computer simulation run by those he calls the prison warders. He developed this theory after seeing The Matrix, probably, I guess. As crazy as all this is, this man has a following, right? If you know nothing of the Illuminati, and if you don't spend a lot of time looking at internet memes or hang out on the internet, you probably are aware that there are people out there that believe in a shape-shifting lizard race, right? That are interdimensional. So you've probably heard this conspiracy theory in passing and being like, nobody believes this crap, right? Icke can join people like Alex Jones and those types of conspiracy theorists in being banned by YouTube and Facebook. As of this recording, he is still on Twitter with about 330,000 followers. He sells out arenas in England. He goes to England. He can rent a small arena and sell it out and give a 6-hour lecture on this stuff. I mean, they're smaller arenas, right? He's not selling out Madison Square Garden. But still, he's selling out arenas. People come to listen to him. Right now, his focus in his talks, you can find YouTube recordings of them. His focus tends to just be on the Illuminati. He talks about the Illuminati and how the world is lying to you and blah, blah, that kind of stuff. He never really mentions the shape-shifting lizard aliens. Those are only in his books. All right, and this is marketing, right? Because if somebody comes up to you and opens with, "Oh yeah, yeah, here's Illuminati theory," you're like, "Okay, here we go." You might half pay attention to them, but if they opened with, "Oh, I believe that there's shape-shifting reptile lizards in control of all the world's governments," you'd be like, "All right, I've got to I'm going to pretend this is a phone call and walk away." Uh, this is how he hooks people from the implausible to the impossible. Right? Is you get somebody who believes that the world is lying to them, talks about the Illuminati, like, okay, yeah, there's elitists, that's fine, but once you spend $50 on one of his books, you're more likely to believe it. And I call this impossible because for him to be right, we would need a whole new group of natural laws. All right, so if Wilson and Shea brought it to the people, right, they're the Illuminatus trilogy people, and Ike made it popular, Lyndon LaRouche made it a political movement. Lyndon LaRouche is basically a cult leader that had no spiritual aspect to his movement. He died about a year ago. He started as a Marxist politically, but then contradictorily had hard right social views, which is not something usually you might get that the opposite, but this is a weird combination. So he was big on economic equality, but he thought homosexuals with AIDS ought to be quarantined to stop the spread. Right? He was a proponent of nuclear energy and extremely critical of financed economics. This is an example of what we call a broken clock, right? These are two things that are generally agreed upon by skeptics and stuff. But he's just getting it right because broken clock twice a day, right? For our purposes, he was huge into several ideas. First off, that the British government is responsible for nearly all of the illegal drug trade in the world. He placed all of the world's problems at the hands of a group known as the Trilateral Commission. And the Trilateral Commission is just a placeholder for the Trilateral Commission conspiracy theory and the Illuminati conspiracy theory are exactly the same with just the proper nouns swapped out. The Trilateral Commission was bigger in the 70s than it is now. They were founded in 1973 by David Rockefeller, which is one of the names in David Icke's book as far as like one of the 8 ruling families, or 7, 12, whatever number he makes up. It brought together economic and political leaders from the United States, Western Europe, and Japan. That's where we get the tri from. This is during the Cold War, and it wanted to seek cooperation between the 3 regions. They have a website you can visit. They have been accused of trying to form a one-world government by people such as GOP Senator Barry Goldwater while he was running for president. If that name sounds familiar, it's where we get the Goldwater rule from, where psychologists aren't allowed to diagnose political candidates that aren't their patients. The John Birch Society, another extreme right, like they're so far to the right, even the Tea Party thinks they should tone it down a little bit. Alex Jones and Luke Rudkowski all blame the commission for orchestrating 9/11, although Alex Jones says just basically anybody did 9/11 except for the Arab terrorists that actually did it. Noam Chomsky from the left believes that they are trying to induce passivity and non-participation in government, which I think they're winning that one. Membership in this group is invite only, and during the 1976 presidential election, all 3 major candidates, Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, before his defeat in the primary to Ronald Reagan, and independent candidate John Anderson were all members of the Trilateral Commission. Of course, they're not the Illuminati, but like I said, the only difference is in the name. LaRouche made the 1980 election about fighting a mysterious them that controlled everything and was steering us into a new dark age. He's overtly anti-Semitic in places outside the U.S. If you see his European talks, he's like the Jews are responsible for everything. But in the U.S., he calls himself anti-Zionist, which is totally different. But it's not really different. It just substituted the name. In his mind, and in the minds of people that agree with him, anti-Zionist is about making sure that the Israel doesn't control the world. But there's no reason to think Israel would control the world. He claimed that the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, was a genocide plot with no evidence of that claim being true. He claimed that Bush and Scalia stole the 2000 election, which is not exactly right. LaRouche predates Ike, but his injection of the super conspiracy into the public sphere under the guise of a populist movement overlaps strongly with Ike's belief. While LaRouche has had little impact politically today, this idea that political movements are under the sway of a hidden puppeteer still persists. His endorsement, since he was a quasi-legitimate political force, influenced others. Right? We're not having politicians today talk about the deep state if LaRouche doesn't run on it, 30 years ago. Okay, so we're going to stop there for today. Our next lecture is going to be Proofs of the Conspiracy, and thank you for listening.